So we go into Q&A now, and I invite all the presenters to please put up their camera as we have some questions from the participants as well as questions that we have received to engage with. So I invite Dr. Amarachi as well as Dr. Richard, and we have Taiwo, who is brother Taiwo. So I think we can now allow participants, you can put your hands up if you have questions, but I think starting with Amarachi, she will need to address some of the issues that was raised after our presentation. And then if some other persons still have questions, I know David is collating questions from the chat. To Richard, the question so far has to do with the bringing up the cultural genocide within Africa. Is that not a way to undertone and underestimate the gravity of the crimes that has been committed against Africa itself? You know, that's one of the questions that came in now. So please, Amarachi, go ahead with the issues that were raised at the end of your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, and I really appreciate all the presenters who have given a kind of diverse insight into this discussion, because it is always better to have this different voices and then have a kind of diverse insight which will help us to have a holistic view into some of these issues. So one of the questions I got was, how do you think you should put, suggestions that we should put in place in recovering Africa's tangible heritage. So for me, it will be a kind of a bit harsh, but again, I liked one of the presenters who talked about we looking inwards into where we are also aiding some of these things. Yes, history is there. We have struggled. We have gone through challenges. Colonialism is still ongoing. Westernization is still ongoing, and all the impacts, they are still there. And these are real and honest conversations that these things are still there. But then when we look at those damages and the opportunities that is in place today for us to know and to seek to know more, right? To seek to know, to seek into self. Because what has happened over a period of time is a kind of journey outside of self, a journey into trying to adopt something else, to be someone else, right? So today we have the opportunities to seek back, to go back to the root, to seek self and find out the true identity, because there has been also a lot of distortions in history. Like we know, most of the African societies were mostly matriarchs, right? We had queens, we had warrior queens even before the time of colonization, but these are the histories you don't hear about. The Igbo people, for instance, practiced duality. There was never patriarchy in Igbo society. But again, the history has been, taught that it's all about patriarchy, and then you were saved from this patriarchal and very harsh. But if you check the pre-colonial women, you would believe with me that these women were stronger. These women were standing up to colonialists. So when you look at the Women's War of 1929, for instance, these were Igbo women who were married and living in their husbands' houses that challenged these colonialists against taxations, right? We never read histories where they said, oh, the men were crying about it, or the men were seeing it as competition. But today, the history has all been changed to believe that, oh, we are people who were just suffering and we're just there and then we are saved. So we have the opportunity to seek back self. And when we talk about tangible heritage, I will ask again, are we ready? I don't know I can't speak for every part of the world or every part of Africa. Using mine as an example, the Igbo land is not ready to accept back their tangible heritage. Yes, it is brutal sometimes to be honest with these things, but it is also okay to realize this problem so that we can prefer better solutions to them. Are we ready to receive back our tangible heritage that are littered all over the world? No, we are not. Because when you take it back today, as I'm speaking with you, it will be burnt down. Because we are still a people who have allowed ourselves to be so drenched into this colonialism impact, so that even when you try to shine the light a little bit on the truth on who we are, you are called names. You are also attacked by the same people who you are thinking you want to tell the truth, right? For instance, when we talk about, for instance, the issue of surnames being a colonial construct today, and you dig the history, you will see the way the young people of my own people would raise to say, no, that is, you are trying to, but you are just showing facts, you are just sharing history. But we don't like to hear things like that, because we've been made, like I said, over the period of time to think a certain way. So for me, I would say one of the ways to even start discussing the tangible heritage or the return of the tangible heritage is to realize that for tangible heritage to be valued in our own land, we need to awaken the intangible heritages, which is the values placed on each of those artifacts that are all over the world. And without that being in place, I tell you, you are only returning them to be destroyed. Because the only reason I can see some things today are because I can travel around and go to museums like the British Museum, which we have our most outstanding ikengas there and our deities, they are all there, right? But these are the things that even if you return it today, they are burnt down, they are taken away by overzealous pastors. So one of the ways to actually prepare ourselves to receive back these things is to awaken the values behind each of those artifacts. Ekwensu, for instance, is the Igbo deity, trickster deity, but it has been made to mean the devil, just like the Yoruba people of Esu, right? It has been made to mean the devil, but Ekwensu and Esu, they are not devil in our own cosmology, right? So the picture of the devil, which has been used to represent the devil in museums, have been the Ikenga mask, the one of our masquerades, which when you look at the Mbedike masquerade, I mean, the mask of Mbedike masquerade is used even in books to represent the devil. So when a child is growing up and picks some of these books, the child open these books, of course, which are written mostly by foreigners to represent devil, which is not the deity. Even the picture there is not even the deity of Ekwensu, or it's not even the mask of Ekwensu, but of Mbedike masquerade, which we still have in our communities, right? But it has been made to mean the devil. So when this child begins to exhibit that self whatever, you cannot blame the child totally, because this is a kind of deep-rooted education that has been there for a long period of time. So again, even when we try to say, okay, let's look into self, what is the self we are looking at? Are we looking at the self that we are taught to believe in, or are we actually going deep? So I have another question which said, the definition of culture within the Igbo ethnic group, and why did you use the Western definition? Now, I also want to highlight that in talking about our individual cultural practices, we are also not teaching hate, right, against others. In fact, for me, I believe you cannot holistically appreciate another person if you cannot appreciate yourself, right? So appreciating of others starts from self. You have to appreciate yourself. I'm not talking about appreciating concepts or political constructs that have been kept in place to a kind of discriminate against others. I'm talking about the true divine natural philosophy of humanity, right? Which has been kept in place for us from the time go. So when we go into the spirituality and its naturality, the way it should be, to know that in the Igbo people will say, Ebe beru ugo beru, right? This proverb is understanding that we are diverse, we are different, right? So when the kite perches, let the hawk also perches. And he who said the other should not perch, should either, today they are trying to change it to show him where he should perch. But in the ancient proverb, they will say, should cut down his own wings, right? So Ebe bere ugo bere is the appreciation that we are different. And so together, when we come together, we can make one global or whatever people. So again, I have another question which says the economic benefits of assimilation into the Western culture. Now, what is the economic benefits really? Because these are some of the, when I started, for instance, into this career path, people would worry, those who care for me would honestly worry, how are you going to make it on earth, right? How are you going to survive if you are talking culture, or if you are trying to create a career path from culture? Now, the Western assimilation and then the economic part. And I will say this is where we are the ones harming ourselves. Because a presenter also showed some real challenges of where you are discriminated on because of name. So the decision becomes, are you to change your name in order to accept this global picture, or are you going to stand to defend your name until you are seen? And these are where our individual capabilities come in, right? Because if you stand to defend that name, yes, you might lose some opportunities. In fact, a lot of opportunities, because these are real challenges. But again, I like the fact that we have also looked at even trying to adopt this foreign concept and foreign ways have not really taken us away from the problem, right? Even when you come to the United States and you have schooled with English all your life and you are a master's degree holder, you are a PhD degree, you come to the US, you find out that, guy, it is not enough to just have master's or PhD from Nigeria. So you start a real journey of another group of challenges. Your name, your color, where you come from, your accent. Everybody have an accent. Everybody have an accent. When a British person comes to the United States of America, they have a different accent. But it is only the African accent that is seen. For instance, we have the Chinese who have done so well, and we know how strongly they hold on to their culture. And they are accepted globally. So what is it about them that is making them to be accepted globally? Now, these people accepted themselves. They will not leave themselves for you. They will travel all over to school, but they will still hold strongly. TikTok is created by a Chinese person, but Chinese are not using TikTok, right? So they can give the world whatever they want, but they still hold on to who they are. When you go to my school, for instance, if you go to any laptop or any desktop used by a Chinese person in the school library, you see the language has been changed, right? They use their language to type. Even when we are TAs, even when they cannot really speak English, they can't even understand English, they are still seen more than you, who is a black person. So the question becomes, how come when someone who is a Chinese cannot even speak clear English is seen and accepted more than you, who is breaking down the English anyhow with BB grammar, right? And then they will say, you have accent. Who doesn't have? When a Chinese person speaks English, you know that this person is a Chinese person. When an Indian speaks English, you know that this person is an Indian. Just like we have from every other part of the world. But it is only the black man who will try so hard to adopt and embrace a new way in order to envelop this global picture. So the seriousness or the economic viability is seen in how you take yourself. Unfortunately, Africa is not yet there, because we have a crop of leaders who are always at the mercy of the Western countries. And so when you talk about vaccination, for instance, we do nothing. We wait until the Western people will bring us vaccination. But these are people who have indigenous ways. So even if a medical doctor or a researcher in Nigeria, for instance, produce a cure for COVID-19, the Nigerian leaders will not accept it. Right? They will not accept it. Nigerians will not accept it. We will only accept it when it is coming, even if the for instance, one of the plants used for aspirin is one of our indigenous plants, but no, we will not accept it. Today, bitter leaf, for instance, which is everywhere in Igbo land, is not accepted, except when bitter leaf is made capsules and brought back to Nigeria. Then the people will accept it. So these are the damages of the colonialism and new colonialism, which is still ongoing, that we are still thinking a certain way. So I would say mental awareness, the mental picture, the mental healing, the digging back into the real universal principles of our indigenous belief systems, right? This is what will make us to actually begin to attack these struggles the way we see them. Because until we accept ourselves holistically, from our leadership, from our continent, from our countries, and from wherever we come from, we are not seen, because nobody will love you more than you love yourself, right? Nobody will love you when you are yet to accept yourself. So if you look at Africa generally, we are still at the mercy of the foundations from all over the world. We are still at the mercy of the organizations and non-NGOs from all over the world. We are still like at the mercy. We are here to study. We are still looking for scholarships and all that, because our educational system is still there teaching us A is for apple, and will remain in A is for apple for ages. We never change. So these challenges are there. So for you to even believe you are getting a good education, you have to travel. And for you to travel, you have to seek for scholarship. And for you to take scholarship, you have to sign for some challenge, from some agreements, what you are going to do. Right? I am a TA today. Am I teaching Igbo? No, I'm not teaching Igbo. Am I teaching Amarachi's culture? I'm not teaching Amarachi's culture. I am teaching what I am asked to teach, because you are here at the mercy of the same people. You are saying, oh, we are trying to see ourselves. But do you now reject yourself in order to be accepted? No, I am still Amarachi Atama. And I tell you, whenever you are bold enough to look at this and say, this is who I am not going to reject who I am, because who I am is what allows me to see who others are, right? So that I can appreciate a Chinese person who is holding strongly to their culture. When I see such a person, I will appreciate the person so much, because I hold on to mine. And this gives me that platform for us to come together in our diversity. And when we talk about diversity and inclusion, this will make you to really appreciate it in the real sense, not just writing it in paper and say diversity and inclusion, right? So this is what we are talking about. I think I still have, I don't know how many minutes I have.
You take that one, please, so that we'll be able to have this conversation spread across. So I think Richard will have a reaction to questions that has been asked, or an engagement with a conversation in this 2D table. We're just in a 2D table to have a conversation to harmonize some of what we have heard together today, not just in isolation. So, Richard, do you have thoughts about you identifying yourself amidst the what we call it, the Fulani colonization, which you say is part of the cultural genocide in Africa? Do you still have a grip of yourself in the diaspora and what you represent, you know? And how do you think that cultural revival and encouragement, as Amarachi has said, can be enhanced?
Yeah, thank you, Augustine. And yes, I think the question is well addressed, and I was getting ready for the previous one where the person was asking about cultural genocide. Will it not, like addressing this question, will it not kind of jeopardize our chances of asking for reparation from the West? I will come back to it. And your question is, yes, if how do I relate to the situation, and if my presence now kind of tries to bring a solution, or if I'm kind of finding a remedy to it. I think the main efforts is to speak up, to start speaking up, because many in northern Cameroon are in a condition of social death. Like they are not living. The previous speaker spoke about the necessity to be ourselves and kind of to accept ourselves. But when people cannot accept themselves, it is not because they refuse themselves, it is because they have been, since their childhood, brought in a mindset of denying themselves. And there is one scholar who spoke about intergenerational impact of slavery. For instance, what is her name? Dr. Joy DeGruy who spoke about this question. And so we shouldn't take it as if it is something that can just quit. But the first step is to acknowledge that the person or their parents have been victim of slavery, for instance, to speak about it. Once we acknowledge it, then we can make efforts to resist it and to combat it. But the problem is many refuse to admit it, even when they are like formally in a situation of colonialism or lamidalism, as we call it in sociology. They refuse it. They think that the problem is elsewhere, but not from them or not in the condition they are living. They think that they are doing it out of full will, but refusing. And when you kind of try to address even the Fulani culture, you will notice that it is, most of it comes from the Arab culture. It's not actually the authentic African culture itself. It is a set of different ideas. So what we are doing is kind of to bring people to understand the different layers and to start at least to question it, because for a big part of the time, we have been kind of just questioning everything that comes from the West, which is good, but we have to narrow down the situation. And unless we are honest enough to acknowledge that even from ourselves, there is this situation that needs to be addressed and to be overcome globally, holistically, then we wouldn't kind of change the system, because our aim now is not kind of a racial domination, or though we are kind of impacted by anti-Black racism globally, that's obvious. But now the problem is not to do the same wrong or evil things that we have been victim of to the other people, but kind of to find a mindset that will integrate humanity in its globality. And for this to be done, we have to reject, even from our tribes, attitudes, mindsets that destroy the dignity of human beings. And from there, I'm sure we can kind of be, I don't know if I understand my co-speaker, Amarachi, was speaking about the Chinese, but I really don't take the model of Chinese, because I lived in China, and to be honest, it is to replicate the same behavior as the West, in a way, like to use the same tenets of, racial domination and then to impose to others. Because the anti-Black racism I experienced in Shanghai, which is supposed to be a multicultural city, is really heavy compared to what I experienced in the West. So in a way, my problem is how to find this, or how to transform our mindset so that we can integrate humanity in its globality without kind of having this mindset of always creating ourselves and creating others and kind of creating this distance. So I don't know if it's too ambitious, but at least it is my aim. And this is what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you stop on creating ourselves and the others. And I think there's also one of our speakers here today, Elizabeth, if she's still in, so that we go around and circle across the speakers, but I think she's out of sight. So we take Uti, who has a question. I think maybe she has for both speakers. So you can unmute yourself and speak to the house. Uti. Uti?
Hi everyone. Thank you. This has been such interesting conversations, very generative. My question is rather brief, almost like a footnote. I was wondering, and this question I think goes to what Amarachi was saying about the impact of modernity, coloniality, etc. on African cultures, which anyone who has lived in Africa would be quick to agree. Yes, there has been this impact. And the reason for it is not far-fetched. A lot of scholars have researched on the logic of elimination. I think that's what it's called, that coloniality has, because coloniality, whether it's secular coloniality or imperialism, whatever, the logic is elimination, physical elimination in the use of violence, epistemological elimination, structural elimination, anything that will be able to displace the native indigenous so that the colonial idea now takes root is the point. But that's on the one hand. So that totally speaks to the point you were making, Amarachi, and this logical elimination. However, there also is, on the other hand, the idea of enduring indigeneity, meaning that there is something about indigenous cultures that make them capable of regenerative engagement. They can reconstitute themselves even in contexts where coloniality has been so extensive, almost to the potential of erasure. You mentioned the Mboji masquerade. Today in Nigeria, you find elements of indigenous culture popping up in places that you would least expect. And I think scholars like Harry Garuba, they have written about this, saying that there is something called animate materialism, where the African imaginary is always is invested in re-enchanting the world. So whether in religion, whether in music, modernity is taken apart and reconstituted in ways that reflect indigenous culture. So what's my question? Is there a way of thinking about this impact of coloniality, imperialism, that does not suggest a straight line from past indigenous culture to present effacement and back? So this is how we used to be, this is how we are now, let us go back, because I think that's kind of discourse. This is not what you're doing. I'm saying it is a popular mode of discourse. I think what it does is that it follows the Western teleology where traditional cultures were in the past and modernity is in the future, and there's a straight line between the two. I was wondering whether if we can think about African, the impact of colonization, taking into consideration African cultures where things are cyclical. So change, but then at every moment, at every instant, there is the potential to intervene and change. And if so, whether you see moments in, say, popular culture like music, like language, like religion, where the indigenous still thrives, and in such thriving has the potential to, more or less to a certain extent possible, reverse all these erosions that you have spoken about. Because if we go back to the idea of logic of elimination, it seems that if we insist that, everything has changed and all of this, we're inadvertently playing into the colonial narrative of the vanishing native. There is not really African, so let's move on to what's modern. How can we avoid that while still finding a way of engaging with the indigenous in a potentially regenerative way? Very convoluted, but that is my question. Thanks for your presentation.
Yes. I don't know if I should go ahead and just quickly answer that.
Go ahead, Amarachi.
Okay, so I want again to a kind of refresh our mind about having some of these conversations. Now, culture in itself evolves. It is not static, right? It evolves. So even amongst ourselves, even without influence, there are things, even when we go back to history and the records of history, there were tradings going on from one communities to another and one society to another. And there were kind of assimilations of different ways of life and all that. When we talk about the impact of colonialism in this discourse here, it is the fact that when you reject yourself to adopt something else, that is where the problem lies, right? But when you are open-minded to accept as well as being, right, you can infuse things. For instance, as a chant poet, today I can chant on a piano sound. Piano, we have our indigenous instrument, but when you look at the European or the Western piano, it is not from Igbo land. We have our own. We have the Ngedegu, we have the Oja, we have the Igban, and the rest of our instruments. So that assimilation and coming together to be or to evolve is the fact that you can actually be you and at the same time reflect you even as you are going on this journey of life. But when you hate you, for instance, there is this notion going on now that in Nigeria where people say your village people are after you. Like if anything wrong happened to you, they will say it is your village people. It's like a funny, simple trend, but it's actually taken seriously by people. And so you also have pastors who say when something happened to you, for instance, maybe somebody have a miscarriage, they will tell you that somebody in your community that if you have an old person that wear red cap, right? The red cap, for instance, is a general cap that we wear in Igbo land. So when they tell you that in your family, anybody that is wearing red cap is the one going after you, which means that you must find somebody in your family who is going after you. So there is now this culture of not taking care of the old people. And so we don't even have those our old people who are living amongst us. They die off because of loneliness. People are trying to adopt the Western and leave the indigenous. That is where the issue, that is where that link is. Amarachi, I have been in the cultural sector for so many years now. I have been practicing cultural. I have gone to the UK to work in the Royal National Theatre, which is owned totally by the West, right? I have been there. I have chanted Igbo poems there. I have performed in different stages. I have gone to different conferences, but I am still an Igbo person. So if I can be in all these spaces without being called out for stabbing or hating or discriminating, then of course it is to show you that you can seek into the true self as well as appreciating the diversity. And again, understanding that evolvement of culture, right? So it is not hate against the adopted. It is I am because we are, and not I am because no one else is. So for me, actually digging back into self helps me to embrace others in their different beautiful diversities, right? So I hardly have the feeling of discriminating or fighting against, right? I am an Igbo, I am a strong voice in the Igbo cultural reorientation and awareness, but I have performed on Yoruba festivals. I have gone to Lagos to perform on Yoruba festivals that they don't even understand what I say, right? I listen to Oriki, I listen to Arabic chant, I listen to Italian chant, French chant from all over the world, and I appreciate them because from seeking soul, from seeking the spirituality of my own indigenous, I can understand when I begin to hear Arabic chants, or when I begin to hear Spanish chants, or when I begin to hear Yoruba chants, right? It helps me to actually embrace more. So it is not a disconnect of living like, it is the West that is the problem, the West and Africa. No, we have gone through slavery. We have gone through that like we've understand that. So now it is about not reawaken our mindset. So we do not hate self to accept others, because you can never truly accept others when you really hate self, right? So that is where my discourse is actually shining the light.
Thank you very much. And please, there's an hand up by Bankole, and if you can briefly take your question. Bankole, you can unmute yourself and direct your question to the speaker or speakers you are interested in.
Yeah, thank you so much. I first of all would like to appreciate the speakers. So my question is going directly to Liz. I particularly appreciate the fact that she was actually able to bring us into a personal narrative through pictorial description. But there's something that I would like to ask her directly, which is the fact that are there some times where there is this feeling of not belonging here, maybe due to what somebody decided to do, an attitude somebody decided to put on? And if so, how did you perceive that internally? And how were you able to actually manage that in order to actually press on and see yourself acceptable first by yourself, in order that the what is it called, the environment, your environment of adoption becomes highly habitable for you, where you now these days grow up to become a very happy person, and being able to actually flash back with this kind of excitement. So that is actually my question to Liz.
Okay, Liz.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. So, yeah, like I showed some pictures of some schoolmates. I went to an international school. So anyway, I think the culture was that nobody really wanted to be purely Kenyan. Everybody wanted to be a little bit of American. Everybody wanted to be a little bit of British. Yeah, nobody ever really wanted to be, well, my classmates didn't really want to be purely Kenyan anyway. So, but then because I was adopted, yeah, they could see, oh, she's definitely not Kenyan. But that was because the way I spoke. I didn't speak any Swahili. I could understand it, but I didn't speak it. I do remember basically trying to stay away from people that made me feel like that. So that was the way I coped with it. But also I'm a Christian, so God, you know, has saved me and has helped me heal. But yeah, it's just getting emotional just thinking about the times when people were like, oh, you're not Kenyan, you're British. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm Kenyan. I'm just as Kenyan as you are. And I'm not the only one who's pretending like I'm Kenyan. You know, I'm not the only one who's pretending that I'm British. Everybody else is. So why is everybody picking on me? Kind of thing. I think that's how I perceived it when I was younger. But, you know, now that I'm older and thinking about these things, yeah, definitely by God's grace, that's the only reason that I can smile today and talk about it. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. And we are coming to the end of the program, and I see that there are dissenting views among the speakers, and everyone with the valid points they are agitating with their presentation. And you will see, for instance, Taiwo's presentation is all about, no matter what you do to yourself in the diaspora, in the Western space, you're not going to see, even if you try to become what you are not, it's still not going to give you economic benefit. That's the major point that he passed across before leaving this presentation. But Richard is talking about a context that he did not actually create by himself. History has allowed this generalization, this whole idea of language, this whole idea of everything, and he's finding himself in a context. But the question still remains that, you know, this Amarachi's presentation is a real cultural promotion, and a kind of she identified the fact that promoting your culture, standing by your culture, you know, identifying yourself as who you are, does not separate you from the other. You know, Richard talks about me and the other, you know, does not separate, but there are contexts that people find themselves. Like Richard, I think you see yourself as an hybrid. You can address that at the last turn. Elizabeth sees herself as an hybrid. Elizabeth sees herself as Kenyan and British, and that's who she is, and there's nothing she can do about it because there's a context she finds herself. And now there are people who are lucky to be brought up in their own culture, and their culture has a bigger region, and even they can even dominate other cultures, or even make other people who have lower cultures they can absorb them. You know, so we have such cultures in Nigeria. You see Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa and Fulani seems to be like the culture and they are assimilating others. And you know, people don't even know. If you talk of Edo person will just want to associate with any of this or Yoruba person. So you know, I just want to see the last slots that we have for our speakers to come up to speak to this topic of, yeah, how the hybrid nature, does this still exist, and how it can be sustained in such a way that some of this disjointing position can find an harmony. And that will be like 2 minutes each to have a roundup for today's presentation. So I'll just start with Richard, then to Amarachi, and to Liz. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Augustine, and thank you for the question. So this is actually the point of our research, or at least one of my interests now, is to find this way, how can we protect cultures that don't have this mindset, or that don't have these abilities of conquering others. And in an anthropological stance, my job is to protect those cultures that are considered as weak in the view of what people will consider as evolutionism or cultural Darwinism, where the strongest should just kind of invade and assimilate the weakest or the weaker. So I think my aim and my job is to help cultures that don't have the history of conquering others. They have always been using their modest lives and cultures in a specific arena to exist. But if we live, and this is where the policies should intervene, if we leave it as it is happening now, as you say in Nigeria, the Igbo and the Yoruba and the Fulani and the Hausa will just kind of swallow the others. And this won't be good, culturally speaking, for Nigeria, because we think that Nigeria is a big nation as it is, thanks to the colorful contribution of other cultures. And it is the same thing in Cameroon. Unfortunately, the governments are not doing anything, or are doing very few, to kind of protect cultures that don't have this, even if you don't call it imperialistic mindset, but at least this mindset of kind of, or this ability of invading others. So I think we need the governments to intervene, and NGOs. Otherwise, if we just leave them like this, it would be the ideology of Darwin, like the survival of the fittest. And I don't think that this is what our society should look like. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Amarachi. Permit me to put a professor.
Okay, I want to say that hybridization is not a bad thing, right? If I am British and I am Kenyan, I would accept myself as British and Kenyan. It is not a sin. There is nothing wrong with being hybridized, right? We are only saying that we should accept our honest representations, or indigenous as a people, right? If I am born by parents of Yoruba and Igbo, then I am Yoruba and Igbo. And there is nothing anybody can do about it. There is nothing I can even do about it, right? So accept yourself as who you are. And I do not think that, for instance, a place like Nigeria, when we talk about Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo, these are, again, political constructs of 3 main languages. But in swallowing others, you don't swallow others because the government said 3 main languages. Swallowing others takes a whole lot of intentional agendas that is done over a period of time. Just like as we see in colonialism, right? It is intentional to colonize, to enslave, to take over, which I don't think Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo are doing that. If for anything, the people doing that in Nigeria are the Fulanis, because they're the ones that have dominated the Hausas, right? And taken away what the Fulani did was they adopted the Hausa language. Fufude is not there, but at the same time, taking the region, right? It is an intentional, aggressive swallowing or colonization agenda. So just being Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa doesn't just make you swallow others, except where the people have intentionally started that agenda of, over a period of time, we have to take over these people. And when they do that, then that is where it is a problem. But living as you are, Nigeria have more than 200 people, 200 indigenous peoples. And no, I don't think anybody is saying the other people are swallowing others. The adopting of 3 main languages is just a kind of political construct, which again, when you look at it again, it's from the colonial construct when they arrived, and they are looking at who are the people that are more in number and all that. So this is a long and deep conversation if we start going into the root of even why things are going the way they are. But like I said, we are in a place today where we have the opportunity to start going back into this divine and real sense of spirituality and our indigenes and our ancestry the way we are. So that is why I go to school, to find, to seek, and that is why you are called scholars, to find, to seek, right? So the continuation of having this conversation and finding is what makes us, evolve as a people, even in knowledge and education.
Thank you very much. And Elizabeth, on hybridity, your last words on that.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with Amarachi and what she said about being who you are. Like, I am British and I am Kenyan. That is how I identify, and I can't change it. However, the way I present myself, I can do it in a way that people can understand me. So if I communicate calmly and with love, then I think a lot of people will be like, oh, okay, there's something different about her. And then the more I explore my own culture, so the more I explore being Kikuyu, understand the history, go talk to some elders in Kenya when I travel, really integrate myself back into culture, and then bring it back to England in a loving way, then I think people will then begin to accept, oh, okay, yeah, she's British, but she's also Kenyan, and the Kenyan side is not a bad thing. It's actually quite a good thing. And I'd like to actually understand more Kenyans, and I'd like to meet more Kenyans and love. So I think, yeah, those are my last words on hybridity.
Thank you very much. And I hand over to my colleague, and I want to thank our speakers. They volunteered to do this, to have this conversation, and this has been so rich, and we have been here for hours. We appreciate them, and the participants too. They have all been here. So I hand over to David to give a few announcements as well as updates on what will be the next thing with ARN and how to be part of our conversations and also activities. We'll get back to you on this because this series ends with this ARN conversation, this particular one, and then a publication. We're working on a publication on this, so we'll get back to you so that part of your work you can be able to come up with it as chapter contributions to the ARN book project. So, David.
All right. Thank you very much, Augustine. And yes, a very big thank you to all of our speakers for today. In fact, the conversation were quite insightful, and I really enjoyed them all. So just a few announcements. There won't be any webinar series for the month of August. Yes, it's actually going to be a fun month. So we will be having our ARN party in Manchester. So just to inform you all, should in case you've not actually, I can see Liz is excited already. Should in case you've not booked your ticket. So for those of us who are actually on the WhatsApp platform, I'm actually going to send the link as well, so you can also book. And the party is actually going to be both physical and virtual. So for those of us who are currently not in Manchester, we can as well be a part to enjoy the fun moments. So yeah, I'm actually going to send the link to our WhatsApp group chat. And like I said earlier, no webinar for August, the month of August. But however, we'll be having our webinar in September, and it's actually a very interesting topic. The topic will be retrieving stolen artifacts. I look forward to this very webinar. Actually, I'm looking forward to this very webinar. So yeah, that will be our next webinar topic, and we're actually going to be having diverse speakers coming to give their perspective as well as their opinion concerning this particular topic. So once again, I appreciate you all, both our speakers and our participants, as well as our host, our chief host in person of Augustine, for making this webinar series a very interesting one and for making it a success.